Hey everybody, Mike Toy Bonsai Boise. So this video is going to be kind of a hodgepodge of a few different trees that were not really enough to make a full video for each one of them this year, but I still wanted to give an update on a few of them and just show some of the progress and ups and downs and some of the trims, and maybe talk about some of the plans for next year, because I do hope to pot some of these trees up in bonsai pots. So we're going to look at my honeysuckle tree. Then I've got a small group of Trident maples, got a couple of privets, and then I've got a Dwarf Korean lilac that I've had for quite a while. So come with me, I'll give you an update on those trees, and we'll look at some future plans for them. Alright, so here is my Trident maple. I got this last summer/fall, looks like September of 23. I just saw it at a nursery, and it's this little group of 3 Trident maples. It just caught my eye big time. Partly because I never see Trident maples for sale around here, which is odd because they're kind of common trees from what I understand, but I just never see them. And 2, because I just thought it would make a nice little mini forest. Problem is that they're super tall right now. But this was the day that I brought it home. It took all discipline and restraint for me to not just go at it right then, but September is a pretty bad time to do a bunch of work. Here it is the following month. It did this one weird thing where it dropped a bunch of leaves and then started sprouting new leaves in October. I don't know what that was about. And it's the first Trident maple I've ever had. I've had a ton of silver maples and other maples, but so I don't know. I think it was kind of a weird anomaly. Here it is in December. It finally remembered that it's a deciduous tree and shed all its leaves for the most part. So it's got 3 trunks, one of which is starting to split down at the bottom. The other 2 are not. Here it is in March of this year, 24. I just slip potted it into a bigger pot because I realized it was drying out quick. And I finally trunk chopped them. I want to trunk chop them way more, but I don't want to get too crazy yet because 2 out of these 3 don't have any leaves toward the bottom. Here it is the following month. Starting to grow out again. I'm fairly certain I could trunk chop them all the way down and they would sprout leaves, which I think I'm going to do next spring. But I didn't know the tree well enough yet to get that aggressive. It's kind of new. Here it is in May. And just wait for the explosion of growth on this thing. It really explodes this year. And I trimmed it back at least twice, 2 or 3 times. Kind of roughly, like I didn't go in and do a bunch of precision pruning or anything. I just sort of, once it started to bush out, I would just hack it way back. The slip potting, by the way, that's just pine bark. I pulled the root ball out of the old pot, put some pine bark in the new bigger pot, and then filled it up with more pine bark. Here it is in June. You can see it's really starting to grow out again now. So it's nice and healthy and vigorous. Bright green leaves. Really looking forward to potting this up into a bonsai pot next spring. Here it is in July. It's reaching about 8 feet tall again until I chopped it down. Down to about 4 feet or so. One of them is really being stubborn. That one there. You can see it's not back budding down below at all. We'll get it though. And here it is in August. It's growing out again. Just 1 month. Super dense, super healthy. It's loving life right now. Yeah, I don't really want to make a forest. I don't know what you would consider it. A triple trunk or a mini forest. I'm not sure. I just think it would look good as just a triple trunk mini forest. That's what we're going to call it. And then here it is as of today, October. Still lots of growth. It's early October. It's October 3rd. So I'm sure it's going to start turning colors here soon. And that's basically it on the Trident maple. Here is my honeysuckle. So a little backstory on this. Somebody gave me this as a cutting about 5 years ago. He said it was just a branch that broke off the mother plant in a storm. It was right in the middle of summer too. It was like 100 degrees. And he put it in a cooler of water. It was a lot taller then. He asked me if I wanted it. I said, yeah, sure. I put it in this pot here and it's grown. It rooted and it's been growing out ever since. I do have a couple of previous videos that you can check out where I did this air layer. That's why it's so short now. But here it is as of this past June. You can see it's got some berries, and I think this is after it flowered. This ends up, yeah, there's some flowers left there. Yeah, it has these little white flowers. It's in really rough, raw condition right now. So it's not at all like, I mean, to be honest, it's not pretty at all. But I think it will be once I get it tamed and get it in a nice pot. There's those berries again, much brighter. I think I waited a couple of weeks and took some more footage there. The bark is what's really unique about this honeysuckle. It's got this really gnarly, flaky bark, which is just sort of different and unique. And it kind of makes it look older than it probably is. And for the past 5 years, this is pretty much what I've done. I just sort of rough prune it back into shape. Partly because I don't have a solid plan for it. And, you know, I just wanted it to get healthy and stay healthy, which it has done. It's not ever been not healthy, but it's one of those trees I keep meaning to get to and to put into a bonsai pot, and I just haven't gotten to it. But next year for sure. In the meantime, just kind of trimming it up. You know, I gotta clean up some of that dieback up top where I did the trunk chop, and just overall give it some love. But you can see how flaky that bark is. See that? I am told that these honeysuckles are invasive though, and I believe it. Just judging from how easily it rooted. I mean, look how big that thing is, and it rooted super easy. So I've been careful not to let it ground layer or anything like that. So that was it in June. Here it is the following month in July. Kind of an odd color, as you can tell. It was really smoky. There was a lot of wildfires in surrounding states this year, and so I think this was right during that. There, I trimmed it back down again. So yeah, you pretty much can't stop this thing from growing. And then here it is as of today, in October. So it's bushed out yet again. We'll attack it next year. So here's some privets. I've done some videos on these as well. This is in spring. They're just starting to leaf out. These started as cuttings about 6 years ago, I think. So I would say that they're somewhat slow growers for the most part. Because they haven't really thickened up much over the past 6 years. But the bark does look a little more aged. So maybe they'll just be smaller bonsais. I've been doing a lot of clip and grow, which is why they have the style and movement that they have. Here it is the following month. I will say I've learned about these because I think the variety of privet is a golden, oh man, golden something. I can't remember now. It's a golden something. Last year I noticed they kind of suffered a little bit, and I wondered if it was just too much sun. So this year I have it in partial sun, partial shade, and they did a lot better. So I'm thinking that that's the cure for these. So here it is in June. They bushed out quite a bit. I don't know if these, the goldenness to it, I don't know the whole story. I don't know if that's because of how they were hybridized or what. But I have learned from actually Graham Potter on his channel, he works with privets a lot, that the lighter color varieties like this need less sun. And he was right. They did a lot better in the partial sun conditions. I am definitely going to pot these up into bonsai pots next year. I think they deserve it at this point. I just got to pick out a couple of pots that fit their style, and well, I don't know if I want to match the color or contrast their color or what. We'll find some good selections. I have a bunch of new pots that I just picked up recently from someone here in town. Thanks, Susan, for the great pots that I got from you, if you're watching. As far as my pruning style on these, I've always taken just a clip and grow approach. See how they're kind of yellow and then kind of green? Not sure what the story is there. That's sort of the loose style I'm going with on this one. I might take it down a little further even, who knows. But the bark is starting to look a little older, a little more aged. So that's a good way to compensate, at least in my mind, that's a good way to compensate for not being thick. Because if it's a thin trunk and it still kind of has that young look to it, not aged or, you know, weathered, then it just looks like a skinny little tree in a pot. But if it's got that aged, weathered look, that kind of makes up for it. I think I need to reduce the height a bit just to give it more of a tree look. Here's the other one. I've always just had these two. I think I started out with a handful of cuttings, and for one reason or another, some of them died or gave them away, or who knows. just came down to these two, and that's what I've had for the past few years. That one's got a different look, kind of a weird faded color on the trunk, which is kind of neat. Anyways, I'll speed through the pruning here on this one. What I found interesting is that I think most prior years I trimmed them once, and then they just sort of hung around like that for the rest of the year. Probably because I had them in full sun this whole time, not knowing that that's not what they like. But this year, I pruned it up once here in June, and then again shortly thereafter. Gave them a little fertilizer afterward because they were such good sports. And then back out into the partial sun, partial shade. Didn't really expect much out of them after that, just based on prior year's experience. And then, lo and behold, the following month, in July, boom, grown out yet again. Might be the first time ever for these two trees that they did that well. In fact, most of my trees really did have a good growing season. Not sure why this year was different, but it just was. I won't go through the whole pruning session again since we just did, but I'll show you the before and after. So yeah, this was it before. I think I potted these up spring of 23, so going on the second year. So there's the before look. Oh geez, how cliche. And here's the after. Yeah, I can't decide if I want to keep the top third of that or not, where it curves off to the left like that. I might take it down. I don't know. I can't decide. The taper's not great, but I do like the movement and I like the style, so we'll see. You see the branching there where it goes every other, one on the left, one on the right, one on the left, one on the right. Something I like to do. Kind of bugs me when there's like one on the left, one on the right, two on the left, one on the right. Just drives me nuts. This one has grown out quite a bit. It's not as yellow. So I'm going to pay more attention to this, the growth habits and the coloring of these. Maybe do a little more research on it, because I just don't know what that's about. It's possible they're just yellow in the spring and then they just turn green and stay green. That's probably what it is. But yeah, this one's grown out maybe, who knows, 10, 12 nodes on each branch, something like that. Which, like I said, is really unusual for these privets. And abracadabra, boom. Here it is after I trimmed it up. So looking good and ready. And then I'll give you a look at them as of today. Although I have to admit, I had them down kind of in the partial shade area. There was a bunch of spider webs, so I didn't really get too close. But I'll still give you a look. I risked life and limb to get this shot right here. Here it is as of now. So you can see they're all the way green now. No yellow at all, pretty much. But they've grown out yet again. So much on the privets. We'll pot those guys up next year. And then here's my Dwarf Korean lilac. This is in May of this year. This is another one where I would trim it maybe once and it would just sort of stop growing. So it must have something to do with the timing that I would do that. I don't know. So this year I tried to time it right. I've always heard that you should prune lilacs right after their leaves pretty much die and fall off. And that's the state we're in here. I'm going to try and bring some order to this mess. A little backstory on this. I bought this at Lowe's or Home Depot or something for about $10. About, I want to say 6 years ago. I did a full video on it. And I've always had it in kind of a, I would call it a patio pot. So not a bonsai pot. It's been in the back of my mind to maybe bonsai it at some point, but we'll see. I also kind of like having just these patio pot bonsais too. Kind of good conversational pieces sometimes. There's a lot of areas in here. It's hard to tell right now, but there's a lot of areas where there's 2 or 3 or 4 branches coming out of one spot, which is not what you want. So I look for those and try to bring it down to 2 branches per spot, 1 into 2, 2 into 4, etc. Look for branches that are crisscrossing, and which is really hard to do as they start to bush out and get full. It's hard to keep them from doing that, but you just do what you can. That was pretty much it for that. And lo and behold, here it is in July, 2 months later, and again, bushed out quite a bit. So another example of where most of the time I would trim it up once for the year and that was it. In this particular case, twice, and yet again it has bushed out again. I'll show you a look here in a second of what it looks like as of today. It's got kind of a weird bald spot right in the middle. I'm trying to work on that. Here it is looking down into it. The root ball situation is kind of a mess because of the fact that it's a patio bonsai. It's just in these big pots where the roots can grow up, down, left, right, wrap around. It's like the Wild West in there. But if you've never tried one of these, oh man, I did it again. I gotta stop doing that. It's so TikTok-y. Anyways, if you've never tried one of these, I'd recommend it. They're a little touchy sometimes if you trim them at the wrong time, or if you mess with their roots too late into the year. They don't like that. But otherwise, they're really pretty little trees. This one's in kind of an awkward state because I'm trying to work on the structure a little bit. But especially early spring, they have these very small purple flowers, smell good, and they're very pretty. Yeah, they're fun little trees. You can see the root ball where the surrounding soil's kind of started to sink down and the root ball is still sort of exposed. I'm not sure if I'll repot it next year or not. I'll give you a look at it as of today, and then we'll wrap it up. So here it is as of now, October. You see it's grown out again, so lots of great growth on everything this year. Very thankful and appreciative for that. Big weed. Let's get rid of that. See where that root ball is exposed again, so gotta work on that next year. But anyways, that's it. That's a look at my hodgepodge handful of trees. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.